This is GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers, that is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 82, entitled Fluffie FIPs. Description. This flyer asserts that it's not sufficient for a woman to be a FIP for a MGTOW/masculist to consider having a relationship with her. She also needs to repress her genetically determined criterion of judging men according to men's exploitability of their resources by women. To masculists/MGTOWs, Fluffie FIPs are nearly as bad as fluffies and just as rejectable. Now the flyer itself. Fluffie FIPs. I have a sister and a current Chinese wife who are Fluffie FIPs, and because of that they annoy me a lot. A Fluffie FIP is a FIP who has fluffy attitudes towards men. A FIP is a financially independent person, and a Fluffie is a traditional woman who expects to be able to parasite off a man's money. A Fluffie FIP is a FIP who has her own career. She does not parasite off a man's money, but since she knows nothing about MGTOW or masculism, by default, she will still see men as manslaves to service women so that women can have babies and be paid for by men. MGTOWs are defined to be, MGTOWs is defined to be men going their own way, in the sense that they refuse to marry and have kids, and they spend their money on themselves. They do this largely as a reaction against the toxicity of the fluffy feminist-dominated divorce court system that financially massacres divorcing fathers, 1 in 4, forcing them to lose their kids, their house, pay child payment and alimony. One married father in 4 will be financially massacred this way, so it's not surprising that 70% of young men under 35 in the US refuse to marry and have kids. Men are on strike. Some MGTOWs are so pissed off with women that they don't even fuck them, let alone date them. But many MGTOWs want regular sex from a woman, so choose to date and sex women, and then dump them if the women start nagging them or try to extract money from them. Many MGTOWs and masculists, men's livers, choose to twetwef, 2A, 2F, equals 2 apartments, 2 FIPs, which is a relationship between a FIP man and a FIP woman, each with their own apartment. When the relationship fails, they both return to their own apartment, cost-free. There's no divorce, because no marriage, no child support, because no kids, no alimony, because the woman is a FIP. Twetweffing keeps the woman being nice to the man, otherwise he quietly, easily walks away. So a twetweffing male is a MGTOW according to the above definition. He refuses to marry and have kids, and he spends his money on himself. But that is not to say that he can now live a trouble-free life with women. Far from it. Masculists and MGTOWs demand as a necessary condition, in capitals, for a man to have a necessary relationship with a woman is that the woman is a FIP. MGTOWs and masculists won't go near a fluffy. Fluffies are vermin to masculists, to be avoided like the plague, so that they rot on the shelf to extinction. Wiping out fluffydom, that is the fluffies, is the principal political goal of the masculists. You may ask, what then would be necessary and sufficient conditions, to use the mathematical terminology, for men to be fairly content having relationships with women? In today's world, nearly all women are ignorant of MGTOW and masculist ideas. We MGTOW/masculists have a lot more work to do to spread our ideas to the whole planet, so that everyone is familiar with these ideas, so that women in particular are influenced by them and modify their expectations on men through fear that if they don't, they will not be able to have a relationship with a man, and hence will be manless, loveless, sexless, babyless, lonely, maybe poor, and socially shunned. To give you an idea of what it's like for a masculist/MGTOW to have a relationship with a fluffy FIP, I give myself as an example by talking about my situation with the 2 fluffy FIPs in my life, namely my sister and my current wife. I'll start with my sister, since it has been a longer standing problem. My sister is definitely a FIP. She's a medical doctor with her own clinic, employing some 24 other doctors. My brother estimates her financial worth at about $5 million. When my first marriage ended and I returned to Europe, My half-fluffy ex-wife stayed in Australia with the 2 kids. I expected my first wife to pay for the kids herself because she took them. Prior to that separation / later divorce, I was a very active masculist in Europe. Because I returned to Europe, I was not subject to Australia's divorce laws. The divorce was, I think, in 85, ? So I did not pay child support nor alimony to my half-fluffy ex-wife. I was a masculist and expected women to be FIPs. A FIP would only have herself and the kids to pay for, whereas traditionally the husband had himself, the kids, and a fluffy parasitic wife to pay for. So it's easy for a FIP single mother financially. My sister strongly disapproved of what I did. That is, not give any money to my ex-wife and expecting her to pay her own way. I've had bad arguments with my sister over this. She would make remarks like, "When Hugh abandoned his kids," I would then get angry at her fluffy attitudes and harangue her back. "Keep your negative fluffy opinions to yourself, or I'll harangue you with masculinist rhetoric and you won't like it. You may be my sister, but your traditional fluffy attitudes towards men I find repulsive, and if you keep it up, you may lose me as a brother, because I truly piss on your attitudes. You expect men to be manslaves to women. Well, fuck you, sis." Now my current Chinese wife. She is definitely a FIP. She's a professor at a Chinese university, has her own apartment, car, career, and pays her own way. My previous Chinese wife stole half my savings that a corrupt Chinese court system was unwilling to take back from her, so my standard of living fell a lot. I was fired from my job as a full professor in China due to me telling my university's president, whom I was trying to persuade that the city I live in could become the China Center for Brain Building, that Western researchers would be unwilling to come to China until China democratized, that Western professors know that Mao killed 80 million of his own citizens, that China has over 1,000 Laogai, the Chinese equivalent of Russia's Gulag concentration camp system for political prisoners. There are 3 to 5 million political prisoners in China today. Go to Harry Wu's website on the internet. He's the founder of the Laogai Museum. He emailed me back saying I had broken the law, and a few months later my contract was not renewed, and I'm blacklisted from getting another government university job in China, so I retired living frugally, but free to do what I love. My Chinese wife then starts seeing me as poor, and the sex dries up. She starts respecting me less and less, she says. I tell her, "Don't judge me by money alone, for Christ's sake. I'm so superior to you in so many respects. You should be proud of what I am. For example, a world figure in the species dominance debate, the father of the Outellect war, cosmism, terrorism, masculism, etc. 150 publications, full professor, PhD, 7 books, media public figure, etc. She has nowhere near such a track record. But she doesn't care about such things. The only thing that matters to her is my reduced financial situation. And I'm getting, quote, in capitals, really sick of it. I'm forced to stay with her to get a green card, but after that, if her fluffy attitude towards men continues, and if she doesn't change, then she may pay a heavy price. I may walk out on her. Since she's rather fat, mid-50s, and bad-tempered genetically, she may never get another man, and spend the remaining 30 years of her life alone and miserably lonely. Women are much more social than men, and need social relationships so much more than men. In the US, 40% of women over 40 live alone, many of whom were punished by men who dumped them because these women were such misandrous bitches and now pay the price for the rest of their miserable lives. They will remain manless. Things are complicated by the fact that her menopause has still not finished. Well, now it has, thank God. Actually, she's getting calm now. She's calm. At least she's not negative anymore. Thank God. So she still has mood swings, which lead to shouting arguments. Part of the problem is that she's Chinese, and everything Chinese is decades to centuries behind the top world rich democratic nations, including gender role expectations. But I suspect her fluffy attitudes, that is expecting me to be financially strong, is actually more genetically based. Remember that women evolved to be prostitutes for men, that is, female sex for male protein. Women are hardwired to vagina lubricate at the sight of a rich, powerful man, and do the opposite for a poor, powerless man. It is this attitude that may cost her dearly, because there is a limit to my patience with her. I hate being seen as a checkbook, judged by women purely in terms of my financial worth, and not by other criteria that I personally give more value to, especially intellectuality, ideas, knowledge, learning, creativity, etc. The fact that my current Chinese wife does not care much for such things makes her seem inferior and unworthy of me in my eyes. So she's running a risk that she may get dumped for her fluffy attitudes, despite the fact that she's so obviously a FIP. To those women who are reading this, take note. If you're in a similar situation and you judge your man predominantly by his financial worth and treat him as a checkbook, then you too risk being dumped, even if you are a FIP. Men hate being treated as checkbooks by women. It degrades them as much as women hate being eyed up as a piece of fuckable meat by men. So if you women want to keep a man, you had better suppress your genetic tendency to judge men by their financial worth alone and broaden your criteria to, for example, their personalities, their intelligence, creativity, generosity, etc. Men are waking up more and more that their traditional role was to be a manslave to women. Men reject that role now and demand that women be FIPs, but even that is not enough. MGTOW/masculists also demand that women not only be FIPs, but they suppress their fluffy attitudes towards men. That is, that women not be fluffy FIPs. But if they are, then they too will be treated by MGTOW/masculists the same way as they do fluffies. That is, they'll be ignored, left rotting on the shelf. If you women treat men like checkbooks and judge us that way, then you will be lumped into the same camp as fluffies. That is, you'll be ignored. We won't have anything to do with you because you do not give us the dignity we demand. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channel name De Garis Masculist MGTOW Flyers. Ciao.